Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Maxwell Miller. I'm a fine artist and fabricator, and on this week's build, we're making Tzekel-Kan's mask from DreamWorks' Dorado. First, we collect our reference material and make a pattern for the build. I made my pattern with just trial and error using my own face and mirror, though it would probably be easier using a mannequin or a friend. Next, we'll transfer that pattern to our EVA foam and cut it all out. Now, whenever I trace out my foam from a pattern, I tend to use a Sharpie, in this case specifically a blue Sharpie, which you can see on the edge right there. Now, I do this for a couple different reasons. The first is that it doesn't leave the same indentation that a normal pen would if you were tracing it out on foam, and the second is that it comes off of the final product pretty easily. However, when you're heat forming like this, you tend to handle it quite a lot. And like I said, it comes off pretty easily onto your hands and your clothes and anything else that you touch, so just be aware of it. After cutting out our EVA foam pattern, I begin the long process of heat forming with a high temperature heat gun and carving in all the details and rounding the edges with a Dremel. After that, I'll glue the long curved spikes onto the main mask piece using a contact cement. At this point, I realized that the mask was feeling pretty flimsy and wasn't dealing with the weight of those spikes very well, so I put in some metal rod on the brow line to help give it some support. From here, I brushed on several layers of Plasti-Dip to give it a tough outer coating, bring out some texture, and get it ready for paint. So we're doing a pretty easy paint job here since we're working from an animation that isn't particularly detailed, and all the colors tend to be pretty flat. This gives you an excellent opportunity to make it your own. First, I spray painted the whole mask and earrings gold, then applied a white base where it was supposed to look like bone. Next, the pieces of the necklace got their base coat before being weathered and put together with copper wire and leather lacing. Then the final steps to painting the mask are adding the red accents where Tzekel-Kan has his face paint, and weathering the entire thing with washes of black and burnt umber. So that's it, we're done. We've made the earrings, the necklace, and the mask, but if you'd like to make your own versions, there's a few things to keep in mind. So first of all, working on a prop based on an object from animation has its own specific set of problems. For instance, Tzekel-Kan's mask in the movies moves and changes shape and changes size, and that's not something that we can accomplish in the real world. So, making an object that both looks right to the animation and works realistically is pretty difficult. Another problem with this sort of project is actually the material itself. EVA foam, while light and comfortable to wear, tends to be very flexible, and that certainly has its benefits, but for this project specifically, where there are so many thin pieces, flexibility means less structural integrity. Now, to combat this, I actually added some steel wire to the parts that I thought could use more support, but another alternative is to use, say, a moldable thermoplastic or a different material for the base of the mask, and then add EVA foam for detail on top. Well, that's it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed watching how I made Tzekel-Kan's mask. Now, there are a lot of changes being made to this channel that I can't quite tell you about just yet, but as a result, next week's video won't be the normal build that you're used to. Instead, we'll be drawing something new on the wall. I'll be taking you through the studio, answering some of your questions, and showing you some of my projects you haven't seen before. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video, and consider supporting me on Patreon. Links are in the description below. I hope to see you next week. Dorado, the magnificent, something about 1,000 years ago. 2 guys and a horse on an airboat found an island that looks like a skull.